Welcome to VRS. Today, we're going to install on the VRS DirectForce Pro pedals the brand new dampers that we just released. We're going to install them on the brake and the throttle. We won't install them on the clutch, and the reason being the clutch and the brake are the exact same install, so there's no need to show you both. Received both the throttle and the brake, and we're going to install them onto the brake and throttle. We're going to take the throttle, which comes with an additional spring. One is harder than the other. We'll show you how to replace those once we get done with this. But what we're going to do for the sake of this demonstration is we're going to focus on the brake first, and then we will do the throttle. It's a very simple and easy to do. What you're going to need is both a 5mm and 4mm Allen. And you may need an additional 5mm because what we're going to do is take off one of the standoffs. In addition to that, you're going to need something that can remove an 8mm nut. So whether that be a wrench or a socket like myself, that is perfectly fine. So these are the tools we're going to use. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to take this pedal and you're going to flip it on its face. And what you're going to focus on to start is the standoff that you see right here. On either side, you will see two screws. They both take a 5mm Allen key. In order to remove it, what you're gonna have to do is get two 5mm Allens, and I have them here myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna insert them in on both sides. Now I've already loosened this up to make this a little bit quicker, but what you're gonna do is you're gonna turn them counterclockwise. So this way you loosen them together. Once we loosen it, we're gonna go ahead and remove these screws and the washers that are included. And again, by removing this standoff, it's going to make the assembly so much simpler overall. So we'll take these two off and we're going to sit these over to the side. So now that we've got the standoff removed, that gives us nice clearance to insert the damper. The next step in this process is you have a nut and screw here. These have to be removed to get access to the washers that are there, and the spacers and the white spacer as well. So we're going to take that all off. We're going to use our 4mm Allen key as well as our 8mm to remove the nut. So we're going to go ahead and insert. And again, rather easy to remove. So again, lefty loosey, righty tighty. Easiest way to get this off. And once we have it nice and loose, just take it off and remove it by hand. We're going to remove the nut and the washer. Now what you also want to do is when you're removing this screw, don't pull it all the way out. Leave it slightly inserted. Now you can take it out, it's not going to hurt, but it just makes the assembly an extra step. So we leave the screw inserted into the aluminum washer there. We're going to take the actual brake damper. We're going to take this little spacer you see here and we're going to insert it so it's flush on one end. Now we're going to take both of those washers that you just took off and we're going to assemble it back on. So it should look like this. Now all we're simply going to do, now that we've removed the standoff that is here, we're going to slide it back in ever so gently and easily. We're going to hold the rod and we're going to insert that screw right back in. We're going to lay the damper down. We're going to put the washer back on. We're going to put the nut back on. And here's where the decision comes. How much damping do you actually want? So if you move it closer to the top, you get more damping. If you move it closer to the bottom, you get less damping. So for my purpose, I'm going to move it to the middle because I just want to try it. I want to see how it does and then make adjustments along the way. So I'm going to take that Allen key that I have. I'm going to pop on my 8mm socket here. And I'm going to tighten. Now we don't want to over tighten. We want to tighten it just enough so that it has some tension, but the damper falls under its own power. It's a little too loose. Let's go a little bit tighter. A little bit tighter. And again, you're just moving it incrementally. We don't want it to stay straight up like this. So the fact that it's not moving and falling under its own power, that's a little too tight. So I'm going to back it off just a little bit. And now you can feel some tension. It still falls under its own power, but there's a little bit of tension there. That's going to work just right. When aligning the brake, you want to make sure that you keep note of the pivot point on the actual damper. You can see that it pivots in this direction. It has flat spots on the top and the bottom. Those will correspond to the top and bottom here. So when you screw it in counterclockwise, make sure that it doesn't vary more than 15 degrees from both the top and the bottom when you assemble. Now the next step in this is to take this damper and we're going to press it and put it into this screw hole and back. Now this hole has to be done counterclockwise, and I'll put it up to the camera so you can see it. By removing the standoff, it gives you easy access to get the damper screw lined up. Then you're going to take that 5 mil that you have sitting around and you're going to place it into the hole. Now mind you, this is plastic and it will take a little bit just to get it screwed in correctly. So bear with me while I do just that, because it's not something that's super easy, but as you can see, removing the standoff makes this process significantly easier. And what we're going to do is we're going to tighten just a little bit and then we're done. All right, so before we finish this off, we have the standoff that we have to insert back into the pedal to make sure that the feet lay even. So we're going to take the standoff, we're going to insert it back in here, and we're going to not tighten it as tight because you may have to make adjustments. Now, when you first take it off, if your front screws are pretty tight, then this won't move at all when you take the standoff off. Again, but we always want to validate that because you're going to want to get this back on your rig and get to racing. So we've hand tightened it for now. We're going to tilt it back down. We're going to make sure it sits nice and level. Make sure that the angle of the pedal is exactly what you wanted. Then we're going to tilt it back up to make your life easy. And then we're going to simply just take our 5 mil on both sides. And now we're going to tighten it by turning it clockwise. So tighten it together. Now that the standoff and everything is installed, what we're going to do is test the damper to make sure it all works well. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop out the pin that's attached to the brake. And this is for the spring. We're going to slide it up and we're going to slide it out. The goal of this is just to make sure there's nothing wrong. So we're going to slide the damper in and out, and it operates very smooth. No clinking, no moving, no problems. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this spring and we're going to put it right back in, tilt it to get it in. We're going to hold on to the blue spring. We're going to attach it and pop it back in to the hole back here. We're going to line it up, slide it back on, take the pin that we removed, slide it back in here, make sure it's aligned properly, pop it down, and you've got a damper that's now installed. All right, everybody, let's now focus on the throttle. Before we get to that, we're going to look at the 2 springs that come with it. One's a little bit harder than the other, so that'll give you a lot more damping. But we're going to put this one down for the second and show you how to swap it out. The easiest way to do so is to take this screw here, and if we screw it all the way back, it's going to release some of the tension. Now screw it all the way down to the bottom, but don't lock it in place. Don't screw it too hard. Then, since that is now there, what we're also going to do is slide this down. This little plastic piece has a notch right here that you can see. Now by disconnecting the spring from that little plastic piece, that allows us now to have the free rein to pop this off, sliding it through, and then going ahead and pulling off the spring. We can put the spring back on. And again, because we've now made it all the way down, now we have a little bit more space. We can compress the spring just a little, take that plastic piece with the notch facing up, slide it back on, and come on, Ray, be precise. Feel it snap back into place. We're going to snap the spring back into place and we're good to go. And now we've swapped it out. So now let's put this on the actual throttle. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the throttle, just like the brake, we're going to flip it down so you can see the underside of it. This standoff here that's connected by these two bolts, these are both 5mm, so you'll need 5mm Allen keys to get it separated. So what we're going to do is we're going to do just that. Now I have loosened this up prior to doing this, but you'll want to turn them counterclockwise. So lefty loosey, righty tighty, but the other way, so that you can loosen them simultaneously. Once you do so, we're going to simply unscrew. We're going to take the screw and washer, set it to the side. We're going to remove the standoff, lay that to the side. Now that gives us step 2. We're going to take off the screw that's here. It's got an 8mm nut on the end, so you'll want to use something that gives you access to unscrew that, and a 4mm Allen key. Very simply, just unscrew it. And again, keep unscrewing, because we're going to take this all the way out. Unlike the brake, this one is slightly different. So we're going to unscrew this, holding on to the washer that's here, taking that off, completely take off the screw, because we need access to the 2 washers and the spacer that is inside. Now I have wonderfully dropped mine inside, but it doesn't take long to get it out. Now we're going to take that damper, we're going to press this little spacer all the way in through, and we're going to push it till it's equal on both sides. We're then going to take these spacers and put one on either side, which is different than you notice from the brake. Now that we have one on either side, we've removed the standoff, so it's simply easier to take this and see I was moving, so this fell off. Don't do like me, do better. So holding this gently, we're going to now take this, feed it on through, and we're going to look for that screw that we took out, which is on the other side, gently pushing this in, and then placing the screw in between with the washer, feeding it all the way through. We're going to grab the washer on the other end, put on the screw. Now, just like the brake, you're going to have to decide how much damping you actually want. If you want to move the damper all the way to the top and get the most amount of damping, well, the load cell is sitting here. And if you look, you can see there are 2 screws that are here. This is for the load cell. If you were to move this all the way to the top to get the most amount of damping, you're going to have to move the load cell up. So you would simply unscrew and move it up, but you will also have to move the spring up so that you don't get any deformity with the throttle pedal. But we're putting it in the middle, so we're not going to have that issue. So I'm going to tighten it by hand just a little, and then we're going to go and get the Allen key, and now we're going to tighten it. And similar to the brake, we're not going to over tighten this. So when you feel a little bit of tension, we want to check the damper. See, now it stays in place. We don't want it to stay. We want it to slightly drop. So we're going to loosen it up just a little. And we want it to fall under its own power, but have a little bit of tension. See, I can feel some tension. It does fall under its own power, but I feel a little bit of tension when I move it. It's exactly where you want to be. So on the throttle, we want to make sure that as we look at the damper, remember the pivot point, it pivots this way. It has flat spots on the top and bottom. Make sure they align with the top and bottom here so that it sits as flat and flush as possible. This way, when you're using your pedal, it pivots on this point here as illustrated in the manual. Now the next step in this is to take this, because it's got a spring on it, it's not like the brake, it doesn't stay compressed as long. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this here, as you can see, because we've removed the standoff, now we can push it underneath and lock it in place. Now this might take a little bit to get screwed in perfectly, but we're gonna take the 5mm Allen key and we're going to screw counterclockwise. Now for me, I've noticed by removing the standoff, it makes this process significantly easier. So we're gonna Get a nice little tightness on it, not too tight, remembering that this is plastic and we don't want to cause any damage to the damper. Now that we've got that installed, now what we're going to do is put that standoff back. Not a hard process, just get it back in place and align it. We're going to go ahead and put the screw and washer back in place. Now making sure that, remember, this also adjusts the tilt of your pedal. So if you had your pedal in a certain position, you'll want to validate that before you over tighten these. So I'm going to take a look at mine. I'm going to make sure that this is absolutely even. And as we can see here, it's slightly rocking. So I'm going to press and make it even on both sides. Look at the angle of my pedal. This is spot on where I want to be. I'm going to tighten it a little bit more by hand. Then I'm going to grab both of those 5mm Allen keys. And now we're going to tighten it by going clockwise with it. So, wrong size. Come on, pay attention, right? And we're going to tighten it. Nice, good tight. So one last thing, if you'd like to tighten the spring and adjust the damping while the pedal is on your rig, if we were to lie this straight down, what you can do is just reach underneath and you can twist the spring with one finger. So all you're going to simply do is reach in, make a few twists to the spring, wind it up, and it's very easy to twist it around. And now I've added more tension onto the spring in here, as you can see down below. We're going to test it because it's a throttle. Give it a nice good push. I don't hear any sounds. I don't hear any squeaks. I don't hear any clanking. We are good to go. Thank you for watching. Thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on. As always, leave a comment down below if you have any questions. Join our Discord channel if you have any more questions, and we'll be glad to help you.